Hey people, I just wanted to make a wee Facebook Live because I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit and talk about trauma and burnout coaching. Because next month, I'm going to take a practitioner certification program on matrix reimprinting, which is a way of clearing the emotional memories of PTSD using emotional freedom technique, EFT tapping. And it's an evidence-based method, and I found it quite intriguing. It's based on the work of Bruce Acker and co. in a book called Unlocking the Emotional Brain. And I'm not trained in psychotherapy, and that might be controversial for you listening, but I do have a number of energy healing qualifications, including EFT itself, Reiki, NLP, kinesiology, and I really have found all of them very powerful. I think specifically, I've been thinking a lot about trauma, and partly because I'm seeing a lot of clients come in to burnout coaching with trauma, underlying some of their burnout symptoms. And sometimes it's small t trauma, and occasionally it's big T trauma. Sometimes it's managed, sometimes it's unmanaged, sometimes it's undetected by them. They don't know anything about it. And I've also been reading the work of Gabor Mate, which I found exceptionally high quality. And he worked with, he's a doctor, and he worked with aged care and also OB-GYN before that. And he's also worked for 12 years in the slums in Canada, dealing with people who are addicted and homeless. And one of the things that he suggests is he's written a book on ADHD, he's written a book on addiction, he's written a book on PTSD and some other books. And he really talks about insecure attachment styles kind of underlying all of those conditions. And I'm thinking about that a little bit because ADHD really, the people with ADHD seem to me to be strivers. They seem to be trying to get affection from achievement. They seem to absorb the message of not being loved for who they are. Addiction, Gabor says, is a coping mechanism for trauma, where people have felt unsupported, unlovable, and consequently need to escape their uncomfortable emotions. And he talks about PTSD in a similar way. It tends to happen to people who in childhood didn't have an available safe adult in whom they could confide everything. And he queries that anybody with PTSD has a happy childhood. Anyway, that's kind of the pattern of trauma itself. How trauma imprints in the body as PTSD is when a traumatic event occurs, if there is no safe other in whom the person to whom the trauma has occurred can confide, can be supported in digesting the trauma experience and the emotional response they have to that. If they can't process any of those things with the safe other, then PTSD is what develops. It stores the trauma in the body, hiding it, if you like, in the body for later processing when there is a more conducive environment. So really what it seems to me is kids who experience insecure attachment during their childhood, they wouldn't have had the experience of being valued simply for who they are. They would have mainly tried to get attention through achievement, or its opposite, through being very rebellious. And often those people then are going to be perfectionists, right? These super strivers, super achievers, that's what turns into perfectionists. That's what turns into what I would see as a type A personality or set of behaviors. And then that predisposes them to burnout as well as ADHD, addiction, PTSD. And I think curiously, I read up on the origins of this type A personality. And it was a term invented in the 1950s by two cardiologists, Mayer Friedman and Ray Rosenman, when their upholsterer noticed that only the front edges of their waiting room chairs were wearing out. Anyway, they continued to do an 8.5-year study of healthy men aged 39 to 55, culminating in the theory that so-called type A personality men had double the risk of coronary heart disease as other people. And I'm telling you this as a type A man who had a heart attack at 55 immediately after dropping into burnout. But I think the result of this, really, the conclusion that I draw is type A characteristics are not part of one's personality. Therefore, they must be simply coping mechanisms, coping behaviors that we acquire, presumably in childhood. And so based on that, for myself, as a burnout coach, and as I see clients coming into me with trauma sitting behind their symptoms of burnout, I feel that the more I learn about attachment, about type A behaviors, stress, anxiety, trauma, addiction, ADHD, and all of the other associated difficulties faced by men in burnout, the more I learn about all that, the better. And that's why I'm taking time off in March to do this matrix reimprinting course. And I will tell you that I've experienced matrix reimprinting as a client, and it really blew my socks off. So I'm really curious to find how people respond to the things that I've just said, and what your view is on trauma and burnout coaching, whether that's an experience that you have had or not, or whether that's something that you recognize and work with or not. I really invite you to comment with all your own thoughts here so that we can learn a little bit more as a group, because all of the things I've just said, they're just kind of knowledge that I've acquired from people who are experts, generally scientists and researchers and doctors, and opinions that I've formed based on who I've seen come through my door. So I think it's a really big concept to grapple with. It's a complex concept. You will doubtless have all of your own thoughts and your own experiences about that, which I would love you to share here. And because matrix reimprinting is evidence-based, and I think that's important, I will put the research in the comments as well if you'd like to see those. So I'm very much looking forward to your feedback shortly.